a lot that I enjoy about making the Into the Greenwood podcast, but I have to say that foremost amongst them has been how it's afforded me the opportunity to meet fantastic and interesting people from all over the world. One of those people is Andy Mark Simpson, a writer and filmmaker in Northern England. He also hosts DreamSwarm, a podcast about various topics relating to folklore and the supernatural. He invited me onto his podcast last year to discuss the folklore and history surrounding Robin Hood, and you can look forward to hearing him on a future episode of Into the Greenwood, where we'll be discussing the intersections between Robin Hood lore and modern supernatural storytelling. In honor of May Day, a celebration closely linked with Robin Hood, I asked Andy if I could share the episode of DreamSwarm in which he interviewed Keith Leech, the founder and organizer of the Hastings Jack-in-the-Green festival. It's a great interview with many insights about the Jack-in-the-Green tradition and the history of May Day festivals in general, especially as active celebrations being practiced today thanks to the hard work of organizers like Keith. So, make sure you're sitting comfortably and enjoy episode 25 of the DreamSwarm podcast, Jack-in-the-Green, Hastings Jack.
Hello and welcome to the DreamSwarm podcast. This is your home for supernatural film, stories and art. I'm your host, magic realist filmmaker Andy Mark Simpson. Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin. Hello everyone, welcome to the next episode of DreamSwarm. I'm really pleased today to be joined by Keith Leech. We have something a little bit different today. We're going to talk about the Jack-in-the-Green tradition and especially the Hastings Jack-in-the-Green tradition. So Keith has joined us from the organisation who creates that party in Hastings in May Day. So welcome, Keith.
Hi there, welcome to sunny Sussex.
Yeah, so joining us from the other end of the country to me down in Sussex. So I'm going to talk about the Jack-in-the-Green tradition. But firstly, Keith, could you introduce firstly yourself and then also your organisation?
Yeah, I'm Keith Leech. For some reason, best known to myself, I'm the person that researched, discovered the Jack-in-the-Green tradition in Hastings and revived it. And for a few years, just sort of did it on my own, but it became pretty obvious it needed more people. So since then, set up a charity. We have a group of trustees, got a load of volunteers that help us. It's still growing. It's gone from about half a dozen of us running around a few pubs to this massive, great big thing. It's great. It's grown all on its own. And they've given me an MBE for doing it.
You kind of revived an older tradition of Jack-in-the-Green and you brought that to Hastings. And I know the Jack-in-the-Green tradition happens in lots of other towns in the south of England there. For those of us who aren't as familiar with it, could you explain what Jack-in-the-Green is and also maybe how it starts, and could you describe what the tradition is?
The first Jacks-in-the-Green, the first recorded Jacks-in-the-Green were from Crystal Palace in the 1780s. So if anybody thinks they're older than that, they're mistaken. They're a relatively late custom. What used to happen was that the various guilds in London would, on May Day, go out with various processions. The milkmaids would go out with hats covered in silverware and flowers. Various other groups would go out. The sort of continuation of May garlands from way back. And then the chimney sweeps went out with a garland so big that you had to climb inside it. And thus the Jack-in-the-Green was born. So if anybody thinks it's some cutesy rural ancient thing, no, it's an urban custom. It came from London, and the Jacks-in-the-Green then spread across London, and then from there they spread across the southeast of England to all the places that had chimney sweeping. And in the case of one we're talking about, they came down to the new town as it was at the time of St Leonard's on Sea. An enterprising guy from London came down as chimney sweeper. His name was Charles Lee. and he brought the custom with him.
What does the Jack-in-the-Green costume look like? You said it's full of garlands and...
Yeah, well, I say a garland so big that you have to climb inside it, so you can use your imagination there, can't you? It's a conical structure. It's about 10 feet high. It's about 4 or 5 feet wide at the bottom. It's about 2 feet wide at the top. It's covered in leaves, and on top of it, it's got a crown of flowers.
Yeah, it sounds amazing and sounds hard work for someone walking around carrying that. But I'd say in the history of this, it's fairly recent, the last 300 years or fewer that it's grown. So it's probably one of those things where you always read about and someone will say, oh, it's pagan or it's pre-Christian and things, but you're saying it's come from an industrialized society.
It has, yeah, bringing the greenery into the city.
Does it relate then at all to other May Day traditions that are more ancient or more, not necessarily pre-Christian, but perhaps medieval May Day traditions? Is there much relation to those?
Things build on themselves. Way back, people used to carry around floral garlands at the beginning of May for the Roman festival of Flora. It's a natural thing to do. The flowers have come out, the leaves have come out, people are going to make things out of them and they're going to carry them around. And that's gone all the way through. So yes, there is a link. There's a link back to those. There's a link back to the May garlands. There's a link back to the May garlands that the children carry around with the doll inside. The doll, by the way, represents the Virgin Mary. It links right back, and it links right back to the May Games. And the May Games used to be, in medieval times, a really big thing in the village, where there'd be maypoles, there'd be dancing, there'd be garlands, there'd be all of these things, and they would happen in May or early June, and they would be organised by the church as like a church fete, as a kind of annual way of making loads and loads of money to keep things going for the parish, to keep things going for the village, for philanthropic effort and things of that nature. So once again, I'm saying it, even then, although it links back to the Roman Saturnalia, in fact, it was all organised by the Roman Catholic Church in medieval times as a great big village party.
So as you say, so it's not like necessarily a concrete link or an organisational thing, but it's that springtime feeling that people want to celebrate, people want to get together, and people are going to celebrate by using the greenery that's around them, the flowers that are coming out this time of year.
Just naturally what they're going to do. And the Jack-in-the-Green, I mean, it is from that. It's a growth of that. But it's like asking the question, are modern Morris dances linked back to dances that were done in the Iron Age? And the answer is, well, yes, as is the English language, as is anything that we've still got. It evolves. And it's going to continue to evolve. It's going to go on to the future. It's going to be different again.
Yeah, things have evolved, very quickly, I suppose, in the last couple of years with coronavirus and things. I know a lot of these folklore festivals where people really want to get together. I know a lot of these events in the last couple of years had to be cancelled or had to move to online events where they would have online talks about the event or show some of the videos from previous years and things. So, I mean, things change year by year. And let's talk about the Hastings Jack-in-the-Green, because you're the person who revived that tradition. You were saying, we were chatting just before, you were saying, oh, there was a few of you got together in the 80s and went to a few pubs and did it, but now that whole town of Hastings kind of comes out in greenery celebrating this Jack-in-the-Green tradition. So could you describe what the Hastings Jack-in-the-Green is and what things look like in the town and what goes on during the festival?
Yeah, it's quite a change from what it was. There's a couple of photographs. There's about 8 of us wandering around in green stuff and Morris dancing costume, getting drunk. And I think the Jack-in-the-Green fell apart halfway round. And some of us were wearing the most ridiculous costumes. And I've got some photographs. I've been thinking, why on earth was I wearing that? And so on. But it somehow seized the imagination. I had a little bee in my bonnet at the time about arts funding not going to folklore. And so I started knocking on a few funding doors, and to my surprise, one of them opened. It was actually Hastings Borough Council, and they said, yes, we want a large Morris dancing festival in town in May. Do it. That was the beginning of things, and from then it's really, 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 really grown. Now, what have we got? So we've been 2 years off. It's like everybody's bereft. Because for the town now, it's like the start of the tourist season. People go around on May Day in Hastings saying Happy New Year to each other. It's that big. It's, as far as the town's concerned, it's the beginning of the tourist season. We've got Morris dancers, ceilidhs, concerts, folk singers, you name it, happening over the Saturday and Sunday sessions. Friday night, things of that nature. But Monday is the big day. Monday's the day when Jack-in-the-Green comes out. You'll find the whole route is decorated with ribbons, with flowers, with leaves. People will decorate their houses with ribbons and flowers and leaves. And so the whole old part of the town is just festooned. We've even got ribbons and flowers and bowers of greenery hanging off the top of the church towers. It's just beautiful. And then the Jack-in-the-Green comes out. There's an old fisherman's church on the seafront, and he sits in there. We take him in early in the morning, and we just sit in there banging drums, just building up a bit of atmosphere, drinking a few beers, and just getting used to the idea. Then out he comes, and I've gone in there, and it's been empty. I've come out, and the street is just full. You can't move. Everybody that comes along is dressed up. The whole town dresses up to come and watch it. So everybody's dressed up in some kind of greenery or flowers or something of that nature. There are Morris dancers. There are dancing giants. There are various other groups that want to get involved with this year. We've got jazz bands involved. We've got tap dancers involved. I mean, anybody that wants to, belly dancers, anybody that wants to join in, provided they're on foot and they're musical and they're community and they're kind of vaguely folksy. I mean, jazz and belly dancing, yeah, they're vaguely folksy, yeah. And anything that's going to fit, yeah. Jack-in-the-Green comes out, there's a little dance around him, and then he dances around town with this huge parade going on behind him, music, loads and loads and loads of drummers, loads of noise. 3 years ago when we last did it, the drumming was so loud that it could be heard in Bexhill, which is the next town 4 miles away. It dances around the old part of the town. It goes up to the hill. It used to go into Hastings Castle, but it can't anymore because it's outgrown Hastings Castle. So it now goes to the big green outside Hastings Castle up on the cliff top there. And we always pray for good weather because when it's wet and windy, it's awful, as you can imagine, on top of a cliff. But then we go up there and we have an afternoon of dancing, playing music, got a craft fair, got various stalls selling various foods as a beer tent, and we just have an afternoon of dancing and music and singing going on with Jack-in-the-Green there. And then at the end of the events, Jack-in-the-Green runs around and dances about. At the end of the event, he goes up onto the stage, dances his last dance, and then, and this is something that's an interesting thing, I'll come back to it because it's a whole thing in itself, the flowers and the leaves are taken from the Jack-in-the-Green and given to the crowd, and we get this massive surge of people coming in.
What's the purpose behind that, or what's the meaning behind that?
Well, I said these things evolve. I mean, here's a really, really, really good example. We'd do it. We'd finish the day. We'd have the thing. We'd do the Jack, and then we get to the end of the day. We'd say, now what are we going to do? Oh, I don't know. I suppose we better take it home and put it in the bin and go to the pub, And we had various ideas, and someone said, let's throw it in the sea, and someone said, let's do something else. And we had various ideas as to what we were going to do with it, but we hadn't really quite worked it through. We were just there on the stage, and it was laying on the floor, and one of the guys just picked up one of the flowers that was laying on the stage at the floor and held it up and said, does anybody want a flower? And about 50 people surged forwards. So he gave the flower, and we all looked at each other, and we started picking up flowers and giving them to people. And when all the flowers are gone, people were still surging in, so we started and the next thing we know, the whole thing had been stripped bare, and a tradition was born.
Well, do you think people this time of year want to celebrate more of the environment and things? Do you think? I know you started this in the 1980s, and at Hastings you started it, and I know there might have been a few towns kind of maybe started a decade or so earlier, and especially in the music as well, with like folk revival in the 60s and the hippie movement and things. Do you think there was a bit more of an urge to get back to, people wanting to get back to the land or whatever, and appreciating the environment more? And do you think nowadays, with environmental movements and that being more in the news, is that a reason that people might celebrate these things, or is it also just because it's a big party in the town? Is there a bit of both in there?
It's a bit of both. If there's one thing I can say about Hastings, it's party town. Any excuse to get dressed up and get on the streets and do something, and this town does it.
Because you've got a bonfire one in autumn as well, haven't you? There's a big bonfire festival.
Yeah, there's a story behind that too. I'm involved in the bonfires, and I was at the bonfire over in Battle. At the end of the evening, one of the guys came over and said, you organise Jack-in-the-Green, don't you? I said, yeah. He said, why hasn't Hastings got a bonfire? I said, I don't know. You tell me. And he said, that's because no one's got around to reviving it yet. You're very good at things like that. I tell you what, I bet you a fiver that this time next year that there still won't be a bonfire in Hastings. There was. I started that too.
So you like reviving it, but then obviously you can't just do it on your own. Everyone's joined in with it, so it
Everyone's
must have
joined in.
that kind of
I
vibe
say
for it.
it's now a culture in the town. We've got that. We've got a Pirate Day. We've got Fact Tuesday, which is like a Mardi Gras, and they're organised by different organisations. Now we've got the Town Carnival, of course. We've got a couple of them. A friend of mine once was visiting me. And said, what's wrong with the town? I said, what do you mean? He says, well, nobody's dressed up. There's something very strange going on. Because it's got the point where, I mean, every councillor in the town has a costume because they know they're going to have to wear it for something. It's just known for its dressing up and it's getting out there and having a party all the time, which is great.
You'll be so busy every May Day with the Hastings ones, but we were talking before and you're saying you kind of travel around the country to different folklore events and things. But are you aware of the Jack-in-the-Green traditions in other towns in the south of England? Do you think there's a growing feeling towards those as well?
Yes, we all know each other, obviously. We're all friends with each other. We all talk to each other. Our only regret is that we can't go to each other's event because it's at the same time, because otherwise we would. In fact, I was in a pub once with the organiser of Rochester and the organiser of Whitstable, and I said, I've got an idea. I said, what's that? He says, why don't we get together in the summer sometime and have not Jack and go to each other's town and just do it for each other for our own enjoyment? So, yeah, I'm very aware of them. Hastings, Rochester and Whitstable more or less evolved simultaneously. It's like one of these ideas that had come to fruition, one of these ideas that had just suddenly was going to happen. And the three of them happened more or less simultaneously. Oxford had been going on for a long time. The Deptford boys were a little bit earlier. I mean, if Hastings has any ancestry at all, it's the Deptford boys, because I knew those guys very well when I lived in London. And in fact, because it's on May Day itself, it's not on the weekend, I have on many an occasion actually been and joined in the Deptford Jack-in-the-Green. So I know. But that's a very different event. Hastings and Rochester have become massive festivals, but very much for the town. Whitstable's a bit smaller. Deptford is completely under-advertised, and unless you knew about it, you wouldn't know. Oxford's a different kettle of fish. Knutsford is really part of that event that's happening up there, which is very, very different. Bristol and Ilfracombe are what I call sons of Hastings, because they were started by people that came to Hastings and then spoke to me about what to do and then took it to their towns.
I love things like this because I'm, as a storyteller, and I love folklore for its storytelling potential. And I know there's some people take beliefs in things like this very seriously, and maybe not Jack-in-the-Green, as you say, because it's a newer thing, but kind of Green Man imagery in general and May Queens, and people might have certain beliefs about tree spirits, which is fine. But for me, I just like I like the idea of that, and I like the idea that you can celebrate the spring and celebrate the seasons and celebrate the need to protect the wildlife and the environment.
Absolutely. I mean, why not? I mean, who can say anything against that, really? I mean, you just can't, can you? It's just lovely.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the way it should be.
Yeah, and if you're bringing people together and you have these characters, the Jack-in-the-Green character, and these storytelling, and people can get dressed up, that seems like just an amazing event, and the type of thing we probably need these days to recognise more community and more environmental awareness as well. So how can people join in? And you say kind of events happen over the weekend leading up to May Day for the Jack-in-the-Green. How can people join in if they're in East Sussex around the time, but also there's other ways that they can join in, like online or follow it?
I mean, they can certainly come into Hastings. I mean, there'll be things to watch and things to do right across Friday, Saturday and Sunday. We've got a programme which will be around and about in the town. There's a website. I think it's Hastings Traditional Jack-in-the-Green.
Website is Hastings Traditional Jack-in-the-Green. It's the website.
That's the one. I mean, we're trying to keep that up to date. There's also Hastings Traditional Jack-in-the-Green Facebook. People can come in. There's Kayleys to go to. There's concerts to go to. There's a very old singing family from Sussex called the Coppers. They've made Hastings Jack-in-the-Green one of their annual days out, singing Sussex songs.
So a good one for the folk music fans to join in with. Absolutely
superb. And then, of course, on the Monday, yes, people can come down. They can watch, or they can dress up and join in.
If anyone is around East Sussex, they can go and check out Hastings Jack-in-the-Green on the weekend, the last weekend of April, going into the 1st of May there on the Sunday and the Monday, May Day. But also there'll be other events around the place. I know there's a website called Company of the Green Men, which kind of lists all
Yeah,
the
list them all, doesn't it?
Jack
Yeah.
and the Green festivals that they know of that are happening in the south of England there. So people can join in with those. I'm sure I've got listeners in other parts of the world and Europe and things as well. There's been May Day celebrations kind of happening all over Europe as well, and anywhere with this kind of climate is always going to celebrate things, like you said, that urge to celebrate the greenery and have a community spirit at the start of summer there. So yeah, people can join in with that or go to Hastings Traditional Jack-in-the-Green website and find out more. Keith, thanks very much for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the DreamSwarm podcast. I've been your host, Andy Mark Simpson. We hope you'll join us for the next one. Remember, you can subscribe to stay in touch with future episodes and follow us at the website www.dreamswarm.org or follow on Twitter and Instagram at DreamSwarm. And we look forward to joining you for more supernatural film, stories and art. In the meantime, be creative, be curious, be kind. We'll see you soon.
Many thanks to Andy Mark Simpson, and a happy May Day to Keith Leech and everyone else celebrating the holiday. You can find more of Andy's work, including the other episodes of his podcast, the one featuring yours truly included, at his website, dreamswarm.org. You can also subscribe to DreamSwarm on most major podcast services or follow them on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Thank you for joining us on this special Into the Greenwood Presents episode. My name is Thaddeus. Into the Greenwood can also be found on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all with the handle @IntoGreenwood. Our theme music is by Plastic 3. That's all for now, though. So once again, I find myself wishing safe travels to you, one and all, until our next journey together into the Greenwood.